thinking about that, you're in the Philippines. I know we've had a conversation before about the different countries you've entered and exited and whatnot. So can you just talk a little bit about like your strategy when it came to the US, nearshore, offshore, and kind of what your thoughts were on which countries and what worked well, what didn't?
Sure, yeah. We started in the Philippines, and then we had two, I guess you can call them detours, where we experimented in some other locations too. So we experimented in India in mid-2019, and then in late 2019 to mid-2020, so until fairly recently, we also experimented in South Africa. The point was that we always wanted at least to have two offices abroad, so that we weren't putting all our eggs in one basket in case there was something. Where we are in the Philippines, there are some issues with tremors from earthquakes and so forth, where buildings have to be evacuated as a security precaution. So we can't have customer support stop or have 60% of agents suddenly go away. So we wanted to make sure that we secured ourselves with an additional location. And in the process, maybe find that there's different variations per location in terms of which is a better spot for phone-based customer service versus chat-based. So it's also the ability to have some friendly competition in there. So we always had a strategy of having two offices. So when we started in the Philippines, the idea was, where else can we go? And we specifically tried to do some different types of BPO just to see what we would get out of that process. So on a trial basis, basically. In the case of India, we were looking at trying something which was a little bit more cost efficient and with a much, much larger BPO. That was more of a traditional BPO where there was more bureaucracy between us and the agents. And even though we did a lot to try to bridge that gap too, and those agents were also incorporated in our same system, there was a lot more dealing with managers in that case. And they handled things like training and so forth. And that particular experience we just found wasn't as positive because without having that immediate connection on the training front, on the leadership front, the quality that we were getting out of there just wasn't what we were expecting for our customers. So that model kind of reinforced the belief that having a more personal model, even though it's more work intensive on our end, is a superior model. We went to South Africa to try something similar to the Philippines. So using another smaller BPO that had a similar value proposition because South Africa, very industrialized economy, much more anglicized culture, so to speak, with English being primary language, etc. So there's a lot of attractive about that particular space. And so we wanted to try that area as well, just to understand the different skill sets. And that experience in terms of the quality of agents definitely worked a lot better. But the experience we had there didn't work as well, really on purely a managerial front, where there were just issues we had with the managers in charge locally who came from that more traditional call center mindset that was not really jiving with our brand. And that kind of set the whole thing off to a bad start. And even though there were improvements along the way that were substantive, never fully able to recover from that, I would say, which emphasizes another component, which is how important it is, leadership period, of course, but especially abroad, how important it is to make sure that you have leaders that are in cultural alignment with your leaders in the US, because it completely changes the on-the-ground reality if they're not in cultural alignment. Those are two experiments that didn't work out as well, and we gave them both a good go at it, but at one point decided to cut our losses, and we're able to open up a second office in the Philippines. So now we have two offices there, and that kind of fulfills our two-office strategy, so to speak. But yeah, outsourcing is definitely difficult, and it does require some degree of experimentation. It's a challenge because there's so many different variables that can impact the experience that you can't necessarily foresee at the time. And it's just going in there, being mindful and having as much infrastructure as you can to help guide people who are on the ground leaders, and also making sure that you come into it with a very tight expectation of what you expect out of the experience, and that you're very proactive and upfront about what that expectation is. And if you do that, then at least on your end as a company, you've set the best groundwork you can for success. And then whether it rises or falls after that, it's really based on the talent on the ground and the leadership on the ground.